Good afternoon. This is Stephanie Adams from Get Out of the Boat, and I'm here with Miss Kandee Robinson. And today we are going to talk about how we are called to give and to be of service, but where are we allowed to draw our boundaries? And this is a difficult conversation, but it's going to be the two of us, and we're going to go through it the best we know how. So first, 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verses 10 through 14. Here is my advice. It would be good for you to finish what you started a year ago. Last year, you were the first who wanted to give, and you were the first to begin doing it. Now you should finish what you started. Let the eagerness you showed in the beginning be matched now by your giving. Give in proportion to what you have. Whatever you give is acceptable if you give it eagerly. And you give according to what you have, not what you don't have. Of course, I don't mean your giving should make life easy for others and hard for yourselves. I only mean that there should be some equality. Right now, you have plenty and can help those who are in need. Later, they will have plenty and can share with you when you need it. In this way, things will be equal. Now, I'll be honest and say that I struggled finding scripture today to match today's conversation because as a Black woman, as a mother, as a leader, and as a lawyer, and most importantly, as a servant of God, I struggle with where to draw the lines and boundaries in relationships. That's relationships with men, women, family, friends, and even other Christians. So today, Kandee and I are going to talk about when is it okay to say enough, right? I give, you take, I'm tired, right? There's never any reciprocity. We know that God never does that for us. He always dusts us off every day like we are a new person. But our relationships and our friendships can sometimes be draining and cost us our peace. And so my grandfather used to say, it's a test until you pass it. So how many times do we get tested before we finally say, oh, okay, now I get what you've been trying to tell me. So Kandee and I have been friends long before marriages and babies and law degrees. She is also a mom, a wife, and a lawyer. But I took it back to, I thought this morning, Kandee, about us in St. Louis, a good, almost 20 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
And we were doing our trial team stuff, and we had just whooped that team's tail, remember? And we were out at that bar in St. Louis. And so we walked into the bar. First, everybody had gold teeth. That was the first thing I remember coming from Ohio. But we walked into the bar, and it was that man at the bar polishing his gold tooth with a jewelry cloth. Remember that? Yes. And he asked us what our names were, and my face was looking like, as if, bro, like not even. And you were like, my name is Kandee. And he was like, oh, I got a sweet tooth. Remember that? And your face then mirrored my face, like sort of disgusted, but you're also trying to be polite. So I picked that example because you and I both knew without saying anything, that was an obvious boundary. Like dude was getting no holler, no way, no how. Right. So sometimes our boundaries are so obvious, but then like we fall into these places and positions where people are overstepping, right? Like what did Dave Chappelle say? You're a habitual line
crosser.
Right. Like you forever like stepping over the little boundaries that I have put in place. And if all we are trying to do is have a reciprocal give and take kind of relationship that allows us to, you push me forward, I motivate you when you're down. You know, that's what it's supposed to be about. But we keep finding ourselves in these circles where our girlfriends are draining, our men folk are draining, right? Our family done stepped all over our boundaries. So like, when is enough?
Well,
go ahead.
I think in going to your scripture, where it came up and said, don't make it so, I'm paraphrasing, you make life easy for others and hard for yourself. And that has where I started to draw the line, because as Christians, we get taught part of service is sacrifice, right?
Right.
So especially as wives and mothers, and even as a lawyer, because we're providing service, that's a service industry job. We get trained that self-sacrifice is part of doing good work in those areas.
Right.
But I think as I've got older and matured and been through some things, self-sacrifice doesn't necessarily mean you make your own life harder. For instance, you might make so now that I have kids and a husband, on top of my schedule for myself, my schedule is all over the place.
Right.
And so there's things other people outside my family or children want me to do. And before I would, take away from the things I would do myself.
Right.
Cancel
Sleep
hair and nail
less, you'll shower in
appointments.
the morning, get
Right.
gas tomorrow, like all of
Don't
the
go.
dumb stuff that gets us hemmed
Right.
up.
Right. Don't go work out. Like I haven't went and got my eyebrows done, doing stuff for my kids, things like that. And so those things don't necessarily make life harder, but when you add them up, I'm taking away my own self-care.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is actually making it harder because I don't feel as good as I would if I was working out and eating properly and drinking my water. I don't feel my appearance as great as it can be because I'm not regularly doing those self-care things. And so that's on the lower spectrum, but we have all been on those in those relationships, whether it be romantic, friendship, family, where we have gone to the polar end and we know that we are making life harder for ourselves. The moment we agree, the moment we do, but we have been preconditioned that a sacrifice to that level, especially for women in romantic relationships and when it comes to their children. The way you prove you're a good woman or a good mother is
It's to be a
given
superhero.
right
Oh my God.
every last thing that you can, every drop.
It's true.
And so like even now, sometimes I go to the room and I'm like, I need a moment. And my husband and my kids get offended by that because they're like, what do you mean you need a moment for us?
Because we
And
have allowed them to think we don't need a breather, a minute, a space,
right,
or anything. And like once we have accepted or we've taught them basically how to treat us. So once we have taught them that your needs will always come before mine, then they expect that all the time, even if it was in your mind just a one-time thing. But we do it with our girlfriends too. And you end up in a space where, I don't know, you and I have both been a part of like the Mean Girls, crew where
right,
you got a couple friends that, and I don't know if it's because we've outgrown them. I don't know if it's because your shine is a little different. When we all started out like hustling and grinding at a certain age, nobody was offended. But then you get to a certain point in life and it's like the only way you can thrive or survive is to talk bad about somebody or to bash somebody. And then we end up becoming on the receiving end of the bashing, right? And you just kind of sit
right.
there like
Wait a minute.
when did I allow that? What boundary did I allow you to step over for you to think that I'm that person all of a sudden?
Right.
Like how do we get there? Because we do it at home, we allow it everywhere.
No, because I've had those relationships before I had husband and children. One of the things I grew up very matriarchal family. I don't even have uncles on my mom's side of the family. So very strong, well bonded women. And my family is full of alpha females. Emotions way down here, direct, tell you what you're doing and what you say and what's on my mind.
Right.
Right there. So those are the friends I gravitated to in high school. So I didn't know anything different until I went to join my sorority and I got told by a couple people like, oh, your approach can be kind of harsh. And I'm like, well, it can. I'm just telling you, you're getting on my nerves and I don't like when you do that. Like when you do that.
The truth is
Well,
the truth, whether you like it or not.
right. I think in my attempt not to be so harsh, right? And to be more sensitive to how what I might say and do might come off to other people, I allowed some people to say and do some things that I knew were problematic in the beginning, but because of either what I perceived to be their issues or me trying to be harsher, more in tune with people's emotions, I quieted that voice that would usually tell me, hey, it's a little that joke in that joke, it's a little jab in that joke.
And I think like just how you said it, that little voice inside, I think the older I get, I'm learning that little voice is our conscience. That's God. Like,
Mhm.
it's a reason we have gut reactions to stuff and that we have an emotional response because we're supposed to. And
Right.
like, I grew up, my mom raised me. I did not have, my father wasn't in our house. My dad was in my life my whole life. Like, that's not the issue. But to see a man and a woman interact in home growing up, I didn't see that. So what I saw was, like you said, matriarchal, superhero, we get it all done. And then I approach every situation trying to see the best in somebody, trying to see the light, trying to see the good. And you got to sneak all the way up on me and bite me in the neck. And then I'll be like, oh, like,
Oh,
wait a minute.
yeah.
And then so then I have to backtrack. What allowed me to allow you into my space to get close enough to bite me? But the other thing I struggle with too, and you and I were just having this conversation. So like folks have been coming out of the woodwork apologizing to me for behaviors, that I don't remember, but forever ago. That you just saying sorry and can we reconnect? Can we be friends again? Can we have a relationship? Can we start over? And I'm like, I'm cool on the forgiveness part, but I'm not really sure. Like, you bit me, right? Like,
Right.
so how do I look you in the face and not see what I know? And I guess in theory, I can say, 5 years later, you should be better and have changed because I'm growing and I'm changing. But a part of me is still like, I'm not sure I have. I'm not sure if I put up a boundary, you're not gonna run over it first. But I'm not sure how I enforce my own boundaries once I do put them up. And then, like you said, you start to think that people perceive your honesty, from a negative place. And then even if I'm not intending to offend you or be negative, me just speaking the truth is all of a sudden something people can't handle anymore. And
Exactly.
then, but if you knew me, you would know it's not coming from a negative place. And so I kind of did the same thing you did. Oh, well, maybe I'm too upfront, I'm too direct, or I haven't. And then you start to quiet your voice. You dim your
Exactly.
light to fit into a space where, quite frankly, sometimes we're not supposed to fit. Like, maybe God didn't put you in that position to fit yourself in there. Maybe he put you in that situation to speak out because somebody would speak up, or maybe because everybody was shut up after you spoke, right? But we're so
Exactly.
busy worried about how people perceive us or whatever. Maybe that's what makes it difficult to put up boundaries and then to keep them up.
I think so. I think, I understand more as I get older the phrase people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And like you said, you had this thought that people are inherently good. So when you are originally trained, like, oh, you meet somebody, you bond, this person is going to be around forever, and people are inherently good, you start to operate in a manner that's going to maintain the relationship, even if it should. And even if you shouldn't, sorry. And
Right,
so
right.
when you start getting older and I start realizing, looking back, if I met this person or if I was in a relationship with this person, what I learned, how I grew, what mistakes I made. Okay, now I can start putting people in those categories, reason, season, lifetime, and start addressing my behavior accordingly
Mm-hmm.
instead of this thought, everybody's inherently good and everybody's going to be around forever. I'm going to tailor my interaction with you for that time in that moment. So it may be 50 years from now, we still know each other and it's still kicking it. And maybe 50 years from now, you read about my obituary in the paper, like, dang, I haven't seen her for 40 years. That's really sad.
Mm-hmm.
But I've decided, I was in two long-term relationships back to back. And I had friends and girlfriends, and I noticed that we would encourage each other
Mm-hmm.
to stay in that negative space
Okay.
for the benefit of love, what people tell us about love. So those conversations like, yeah, you've been dating him for 15 years, but he loved you. He gonna marry you, girl, when your girlfriend wanted to get married 10 years ago. Or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he been cheating for the whole time you've been together, but oh, when y'all get married or he gets to a
Oh,
certain age, when he matures, you're the one. So it's
and
around
all of
that.
that requires you to sacrifice you while you waiting on somebody else to mature, and then you miss the blessing that could have been right next door because you've been
Exactly.
holding on to something you were supposed to let go of.
And so I decided when I left the last relationship, I
Who
was
shall
not
remain nameless?
right. I was not going to do that in my girlfriend life, and I wasn't going to do that in my personal life. And so it cost me some relationships with female friends. Like I had one who's calling, talking about this guy and the situation with his child's mother. And I'm just listening. I'm like, so how long are you, usually I would be like, well, when he deal with that drama, y'all can be together, all that kind of stuff. I said, well, how long are you going to participate in him going back and forth between you and this other?
Right. Like you the middleman, you the problem, sis. Like,
and she got mad at me, and I noticed the phone calls trailed off and that kind of stuff. But although we aren't cool and just kicking it anymore, I'm more at peace with my handling her as a friend.
Yeah.
And I think
that's not your friend. That's the reality. Our generation too, we call everybody friend. My girlfriend this, my friend that. And
what your mom say? What your mom say? What your mom say? You got black mama, she say. You don't got no friend.
Right, like everybody ain't your friend. That's your colleague, that's your associate, you hang out with. That's not your friend, because your circle, your friends, like that should be really small. And that's the other thing I didn't, even from law school to now, oh my gosh, and that's been 20 years, Kandee. But even from law school to now, the people that we thought were in our circle that's supposed to be supporting you and have your back, you know how many haters we had in our circle? And you don't even realize, like, you say something is going good for you, and there's somebody in the back of the room like, like, what? How come she did get this or she didn't get that? And that's why she can't keep no man. And I used to be sitting there like, but you're supposed to be my girl. Like, what is happening?
Right. Where's the cheerleader? Because here's how I think about it. And another thing you have to start doing is setting these boundaries is, if you wouldn't do something to somebody else, why allow them to do it to you? Right. And I was doing that a lot.
Me too. And then not speaking on it when it hurt me, because, oh my gosh, like I would have never done that to you. How do I say to you what you did? Like, cut me to the core, and then we still gonna be friends. Because once you call the truth out, that person is not gonna be cool with you anymore. And just to save the relationship that was probably just for a season, we call ourselves trying to, you be friends with people 30 years and you realize you really should have only been hanging out with them for 6 months.
Right. Exactly. So I think that's where you get to the point where you're like, let me look at how I want to be treated, how I treat other people, and align that and say, because boundaries are based on morals. And if you believe in God, your morals are biblical, right? And so most of the things you won't do have some biblical Christian context, right?
Treat people how you want to be treated. Encourage each other, build each other up. First,
love thy neighbor, all that stuff. Right? Like, and so if you have a friend that's constantly stepping on your values or doing things you wouldn't do to them, God is showing you and telling you this is not a God-like relationship or a relationship should continue. So let it go. So I had a
test until you pass it.
I had a group of friends that we used to have a ball. Some of my best memories, are with these people, and it's particularly some of us were closer than others. And as we got older, and I would go around different friend groups and intertwine the friend groups. Friends from my other friend groups who did not interact with each other would be like,
it never
worked.
It never
what's
worked.
going on with that relationship? Right? And I'm like, what do you mean? This person would say little jokes,
I know what you mean, but I'm just not going to
little jokes. And I, the little, like you said, little spirit would be like, because if somebody else did that, they would get it.
Anybody else, but
anybody else,
these your girls.
Right. And little interactions they had with other people, things they did at special events. And I would watch this constantly over and over and over again. Have conversation with the person about it. Try to give them my advice, because according to them and other friends that were in different friend groups, they trying, how they are.
How they are. How they are. Right. That's anytime somebody say that to me now, it's like, this is over, ended, leave, alert. You know how they are.
Right. How they are. They feel a certain way because this and that is or is not going on in their life. So you be the good friend, you sacrifice so we can all, maintain our friend group. And even though we know what just happened
Yep.
is
You
problematic,
suck it up because
you suck it up and you
let's roll over your
sacrifice.
boundaries so we
Right.
can keep peace with everybody else.
And so over the years, watching those little things and just nothing really significantly directed at me, but stuff that I know if this person was not my friend and I heard a person say that a person did that same thing to somebody else, I would think that person was the worst person on earth.
Right.
Right. Years of watching that. And then finally it started coming my way a little stronger. And like you said, like, oh, the person come up and bite you in the butt. It's like little nibbles here, little chunks there. And I'm like, how long you gonna let this go before your butt is just totally
right? The whole thing is gone, and you keep sticking it back out there, expecting them to be like you would be to them.
And so it got to the point where I realized I was probably more invested or pouring into the intimate part of the relationship more than the other person. Being there for big events. Now they show up, they're there, but
that's not the support
is different.
They there to watch so they can hate and talk about you when it's over. Like, yeah, I know what you mean.
Right. And so like for instance, had different issues at their work, employers. I'm ready to go in there with my lawyer suit on. Like, they not about to be bothering you at your job one day to just meet.
I got this.
And a few months later, a referral I was given through this person, like threatened basically my livelihood. And I was informed about this via text. This is supposed to be one of my best friends, and kind of was aware of the situation, why this person was complaining. This person wanted me to do a particular job, but wouldn't give me the things I needed to do it.
Right.
Because of a personal reason that they don't know that I know about.
Which has nothing to do with you being a lawyer and trying to represent them and all of the rest of it. Like, I remember these shenanigans.
Instead of being honest, like, hey, I'm not going forward with this because of ABC, they made me being a person problematic. So one, I didn't tell them how I knew about what the issue was because it came through that same person.
Of course.
Two, in the conversation, at the end of it, when I'm explaining, hey, this is what I did, this is how that person responded, how can they come after me like that? What did I do anything wrong? Right. The response was something to the effect of, that has nothing to do with me. And I looked and I was like, dang, okay. Like, I'm like, there is never a friend or even a person close to me that I would know that would have somebody's livelihood on the line. And I know why the person is doing it problematic.
Right.
Where I would say, I wouldn't care. When I was ready to go in your situation and some of the things they were saying you were doing, you were, but I was ready to go in there and go Ghostbusters. But when it came to me, like, oh, I don't have nothing to do with
that. I don't have a dog in the fight. That's not my issue. That's your problem. You need to do this. I think like, so I remember just in considering that situation with you, I think that one thing that I know when somebody is pouncing on my boundaries is when they can't apologize. So I have always been a peacekeeper, like I said, trying to see the good in people. So just to smooth the situation over, I will apologize, right? Not realizing that I've just enabled somebody to run over my boundary. Exactly. So now, you know, I'm gonna hold firm. Somebody will never apologize. Like some people will never give you, right, the closure or whatever that you're looking for. That's fine. The worst thing to me now, and this is how I know, like, red flag, you are not here for the duration. Like, right, this was a chill stop. We're not gonna be cool. Like, I will have to love you from a distance. All of that nice stuff we say to get people out of our circle. Oh, well, if that hurts your feelings, I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, that's not an apology, right? Like, you shouldn't have said it because you knew it would hurt my feelings. So now you're telling me that I'm too emotional or I can't accept, you know, how the facts of a thing because
they are. This is how they are.
That's how they are.
And I'm just, so you should just deal with it.
So sucks for you that you got your little feelings hurt, but I'm sorry if that hurt your feelings. No, how about that's not how you talk to somebody, or that's really not, that situation didn't call for this, that, or the other. And these are the same people, men, women, same people who will come, I need a referral. I need you to mentor somebody. I need help doing this. And I'm like, because you ran all up over my feelings, up my back, around, like, got all types of stuff to say about me, never to my face, of course. But when it comes time, like you said, facts behind the scenes or whatnot, when it comes time for us to have the conversation, oh, well, here's what you said, here's what you did, here's what I said and what I did. I'm willing to accept my responsibility for whatever in the situation, but it's never you. It's never your fault. You didn't do anything. So it sucks for you. You got your feelings hurt. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know if it's a sign on my forehead, right? This is like, next thought a mile away, or why you think I'm the dumb one to be played.
Right.
Like I don't get that ever. But then I'm amazed when it's like, it could be 3 weeks, it could be 3 months, the same man or woman will come back like, well, things might have got weird, but I'm still down for you if you're down for me. And I'm like, things didn't get weird. Right? Like,
right.
That's not the description of what really happened. And then I'll be sitting there like, is that the lawyer in me, or is that like the God in me saying, acknowledge the season is over. It was so nice to know you,
right.
You might have had good times and there were blessings in there too, but like, this is not a situation I can continue because it's not healthy.
Right.
And then we'd be so afraid to like lose people. Why? Why are we so afraid when these people are in your life to set fire to your peace, your energy, your self-esteem? Like they just come to pick, poke, and pride. They are not propping you up. They are not supportive. Why? Like, why do we have such a difficult time walking away from people that we know have hurt us repeatedly?
Because before they got to the point where they were able to hurt you, so for somebody to be able to hurt you, you have to care. And so for you to care about somebody, at some point, there was a connection and a bond and a growth and some memories and relationship where you got to the point where their actions, what they did to you care. So like if you walking down the street and some random dude be like, hey, you, run down every negative thing. He think about how you look and this, you might get a little mad because the person like disrespecting you, or some days you be like, okay, he didn't take his medication today.
He in the parking lot, bro. You like,
right.
you got
right.
word.
But you're not going to care. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's
but
not gonna hurt person, you. Yeah, because I don't know you. Who cares?
Right. Who you have an intimate relationship with, and they do something like that, that's why you care. So it's hard to let go because you're holding on to whatever it is that bonded you together to get to that point where you cared about that person or even loved that person. Or and so it's difficult to let that go because genuine connections between people, and especially as young Black women, when we start moving through different phases of life, no matter where you started out, as you move, especially for young Black educated women and who go on to careers, the less and less and less you see of yourself, right? And so maybe if that same person had did some of that stuff in high school, undergrad, you probably would have been pure. But when you start making those connections when you're older, or you had connections that followed you from when you were younger and older, you want to hold on to them because it's like, okay, that was genuine because that was before all these degrees, that was before all, businesses and these type of paychecks.
Before
and this
I
is
had
that.
$6 in the bank.
Right. Right. When we come together, scraping together meals, because my granddad bought me some steaks.
Yes,
and I'm like, hey,
noodles and cereal. When we all piled up in one car so we can go to the grocery store because we knew, like, yes.
Right.
The struggle was so
real. When somebody go through stuff like that with you, you just care and you want to hold on to that because like you were there when like I didn't even know if I was about to graduate from this thing when I got to this law school and figured out, hey, it's not easy to get a 3.6 here to keep this scholarship. I'm gonna pay for school and things like that. And so when that person, or when you start realizing, because they probably were doing it in the beginning and you were either ignoring it or taking those jealous jokes and things like that, when you start to realize this person probably does not have my best interests at heart, this person is not the friend to me that I think they are, and the good times are clouding my vision, it's like, man, it hurts because you have gone to care for that person. You want to try to fix it. And you keep thinking if you stick around, this is especially in romantic relationships or close knit friendships, or family, because we have gone through this with family, and there are immediate family members of mine that I have not talked to in about 6 years. And I don't feel any way about it. It's sad, maybe one day, but I'm not over here like,
it's that I will have to love you from a distance.
Right.
Right.
And so I think you just have to learn that. I don't even know if it's love you for a distance, because it's, there's some relationships I had to cut off, and I have healed from the cutoff. If there was a healing, some of them, it was just like, oh, that happened, do. Because I can be from my very matriarchal female family history. I could look at my mom's face and tell where she was going to end a romantic relationship or not talk to a friend anymore.
Right.
So my mom's cutoff game is when she started looking at him like this, boom, the next thing, you ain't gonna see, hear, know anything about the person, don't bring their name up. We know not to say, what happened to Pam? Like, Pam is gone, she not coming back. So
we don't deal with her no more.
So for me, either my cutoff game is like my mom, real strong, or that same sense of you being too harsh, you being too rough, tap into your emotions. I stick myself in these relationships I need to let go of, because I want to show that I am sensitive, I am emotional, and I don't have to be like with everybody. And you just hold on with the hope that over time they'll mature, they'll learn. When these things start happening in their life and they become happy,
they'll
all
love
of our
you
relationship
like you
will
deserve.
be the good times and things of that nature. So I think that's what it is, because you have, for somebody to hurt you, you had to get to a point where there was genuine, deep connection, and you just are like, man, that's hard to let go of. And here's the other thing I've been realizing, I was talking to my husband, that thought of people being inherently good. That is problematic.
I struggle with it because I believe it. I believe it to my core. There's some goodness in you, whether it's wrapped in you done hardened your heart, life has been hard, or you just made really bad choices, and the consequences of your actions are coming back on you and you're just miserable. I still believe it's good in everybody. And it is problematic because people get attracted to that energy, and it takes me a minute to weed out the devils.
Well, here is what I have resolved in my mind to help myself a little bit.
Okay.
There's people who are inherently good, and there's people who are inherently bad.
Evil.
And so there's people on the spectrum.
Yes, ma'am.
And so you got to start watching somebody's intentions from the beginning. Now, it's sometimes very easy, but for me as a Black woman who
it's sometimes very easy,
law,
like the man
it's very easy
for
me to recognize Jack the Ripper, right? Right.
You're right though. It's some of it is automatic. You see it coming, you know it. No, thank you. And then, like my mother always says, don't look at things with rose-colored glasses. Like you have a scenario or a situation or an interaction that triggers a memory, or it's a red flag for something, and it's a whole new person. But you're still like, no, been there, done that, know how this movie ends, right? And then person ain't have to, you don't even have to watch the end. Like, oh, it was so nice knowing you, but this is a hard path.
Right. Yeah, so that other spectrum, there are people who are inherently good. I have a couple of friends that, like, if something is going on with me and I'm on life support, they had that person come and pray, because I think their connection to God is faster than mine. That's how of a saint of the person. And then everybody else is on that spectrum in the middle between some people being neutral and some people being a little bit more on that inherently evil side. And so what you got to do is you got to watch. People tell you in the beginning and watch those little behaviors and little things, so people can be inherently bad, trying to be good. You know what I mean? And so you got to be willing to accept. See, this is what's my problem. In my mind, I could not accept. There are people who do not have good intentions for others.
At
There
all.
are people who want you to do okay or well, but not better than them.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
There are people who, if they don't have something and you have it, even though they claim they love you and they're supposed to be a
Right.
friend, they aren't genuinely happy for you.
That
Because
jealousy,
in
that envy.
in my mind, like, to me, if you have something I didn't have, like, okay, you was married before I was, in my mind, phew, she got married, I can get married, because that's how I think of stuff. I got a friend who just bought her third house. This one got a pool in Florida. She can buy 3 houses. I can buy 3 houses, because that's just how I think. So I want to think that other people think like that.
Right. The same for you. The same for you. Like
Right.
when I see you get married, I see you got babies. I see you trying to buy a house. Like my whole thing is like, you go, right?
Right.
Like do you and be I'm encouraged by your effort more so like who she thinks she is, right? Like I and the other thing is I got 3 older brothers. I didn't grow up with sisters either. So we didn't do, I call it mean girl syndrome. We didn't do that. Like, and don't get me wrong, my mouth is good and smart sometimes. Somebody crossed me the wrong way and I got to go pray immediately because I know what my mouth can do if I'm not in the right mindset. But I'll give you an example. I remember this while we talk about these relationships that we've maintained for years, for decades. I remember in law school, in the good old Balsa office, I had gotten a job offer. I remember that. And I remember there was a particular person in the Balsa office with some other Black folks and said, oh, she's just a token. Don't she know? The only reason she got that job was because, and I happened to walk up. I knew she was talking about me, right? I knew it. I happened to walk up right as she said it. And she kept talking because her back was to me. So she didn't know I was behind her. She's just a token. They just wanted, the lightest Black person they could find to do this, that, and the other. And she went on and on and on, right? And I stood there and
I've never heard this story. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay. I stood there and I listened. And then she turned around and I was like what you don't understand. Like my mindset has always been, again, to see the good in everybody. But clearly you don't even know me, sis. Right? You got all of these outside opinions, suggestions, or thoughts about me getting a job offer. Well, like who appointed you to hate on me when you don't even know me? But then on top of that, I was like, you will go out of your way to badmouth me, right, to somebody else, not knowing that, like, you pick on people for things they can't change. Right. I can't change what color I am. Right. Like, I do. But instead of even acknowledging that I'm here working just as hard as you, I'm trying to achieve some things for myself. You would take it upon yourself because I got a job offer before you, that the only reason I got a job is because this, that, or the other. And I had a conversation with her about why her tone was, her out of pocket. Everything she said was just ridiculous. And it kind of changed the direction of whatever friendship relationship we had or could have, because now I know how you think about me, because you were saying that when you didn't know I was around. So now fast forward, Kandee, you and I had this conversation. I was dating a guy and I overheard him telling his friends how he was going to spin me and all of that, right? He didn't know that I was listening. It's amazing though, but isn't it a test until you pass it? It's the exact same situation. So you talk bad about me when I'm not around, but now you're going to turn around and try to tell me, right? Oh no, I didn't mean it that way. Why? Because I heard it. I heard how you felt about me. I heard that you don't have good intentions for me. Your energy is not right. Like, I heard you. And so I can say my prayers, for you, over you, but I understand that you might be a good person who just doesn't have good intentions for Stephanie. And I have to leave you where I left you, right? Like, I ain't coming back to get that. There's nothing good about what you will ever have from me. And if there was an apology, it was one of them like, oh, well, you just took it the wrong way. I didn't mean it like that. Word?
You
like
exactly how you said it.
Like, right.
Please give me the other interpretation of what you said.
What part did I miss? Like, explain it to me again, how you meant it, right? Like, it's amazing though, too, because what we do as women, before Black, what we do as women, then as Black women, we internalize stuff that we are not really supposed to. So instead of, like you said, seeing people on the spectrum, instead of me taking those comments and saying, it must be something wrong with me, or I wonder if I can change this, or what can I do to make her or him like me, love me? I remember being that person too. Like, clearly something is wrong with me because you keep bad mouthing me and I'm in your corner, rah, rah, 100%. Like, whatever you got going on, I'm 10 toes down. But now when it's my turn, you like, and then I realized, and I tell you this about, the Mean Girl crew, like, it's all well and good when everybody's operating at the same level.
Same level.
Right? We all in the same struggle. Like, we don't even acknowledge in this life that we might all be in the same storm, but we in a different boat. Somebody in a rowboat, somebody got, just a little life preserver, somebody ain't got no boat, right? And instead of us acknowledging, if we can get together and help each other get into a bigger boat, in my opinion, I don't succeed if you don't succeed.
Right.
But that's why I have you in my circle. And so you got to weed out people who ain't trying to be successful. And now, Kandee got this. Well, I can't kick it with her. Stephanie doing this. I don't want to be bothered with that kind of mentality beyond our friendships and our relationships. We internalize that. And then all of a sudden we make it something wrong with us. And it's not.
It's not.
At all. You have an energy about you always had that attracts good people and bad people. Same with me. Same with anybody who's doing what they're supposed to do. People are attracted to you because they want the light that you have. And either they want to motivate you with it, hey, let's work out together, right? Don't need them ho-hos, Kandee. We got to get back to our pre-pregnancy weight.
Right.
Like, this person is gonna motivate you or like amp you or got your back like solid, or they join your circle just so they can make sure you don't become successful. And I'm amazed at how many people we've allowed in our spaces that really hate on us internally. Like, right? And then we kind of sit there like, how come it's supposed to be like the group cheer? And then when it's my turn to, hey, I got this going on, are y'all happy? The person got to change the subject. They can't never support your event.
Right.
Or
start arguments, fall out with you about something.
And it's your fault. They started it and they gonna fall out with you and it's your fault. But it's your fault for being fabulous. I think I'm gonna have to take that L. I mean, it's a hard lesson too. And I think the other thing that makes us more in tune and intuitive now is because we're mothers, because we have to teach our children how to navigate people who just ain't gonna like you, period.
Exactly. Or learning when people don't have your best intentions at heart, that because when we are young, we get that, stay away from strangers, right? Stranger danger. Well, 9 times out of 10, it's not the stranger that's going to come and cause you harm.
That's right.
It's going to be that person you know very well, right? And so what I'm trying to prepare my children for is things I don't feel I was prepared for. So a lot of the conversations we got taught as young Black women or young Black kids, me and my husband have conversations about how we are going to teach them these topics that we were taught as children, but with more information. So for like my daughter, when it comes to that time about boys and sex, people told us, don't get pregnant, you're going to get diseases, right? And so in my mind, when it's time to be sexually active, okay, I'm going to be on birth control. He going to use a condom. I'm not pregnant. I'm not going to get a disease, right?
Or break it down, take it from right there, break it all the way down. Because what really happened for most of us as young Black girls is the minute you got boobs and hips, you were fast. You were not allowed to be around boys. If any man was looking at you, it was your fault. Like, you are inviting this attention. I remember expressly being taught not to look men in their eyes because you didn't want to make them feel a certain way or that you were encouraging. I was taught that. Like, don't smile in his direction. You fast. We had uniforms. So I had a skirt all the time. How could you be fast in a uniform? I was just trying to walk to school. But that's the first thing that like we learned too about. I think that goes with setting boundaries because nobody ever taught us how to set them. Y'all just came at us with this, now that you have, boobs, hips, and curves, you all about,
But here's the thing I learned.
I'm a young woman trying to learn how to navigate life. And
here's the thing I learned in those conversations, because I remember vividly in the 4th grade, So a family member telling me, because the only cousins that are in my peer groups are males. So the
Mhm.
two closest cousins to me on both sides are boys. So that's who I grew up with. That's who
That
I
was your
played with.
crew, right?
And in fourth grade, I didn't get any boobs to the 10th grade. So these little things had to be like a nipple poke out. So I remember this family member telling me I could not play with them anymore. We were running around my house. I could not play with them anymore because I had boobs. I remember turning 12. Now I did get a butt early at 12, being on a playground and some boys commenting about my butt, and some faculty member, I don't know if it was a teacher or something, suggesting to me about wearing different clothes.
Right.
And then, so my most vivid memory, what you're saying, is I think I was about 15. I think that's in 10th grade when I got some boobs, so everything was there.
Right.
And my neighbor's husband was watching me walk up the street. And he's one of those, before even that time, when you see him, you just like creepy. He got together with another neighbor who was also married, who lived across the street. And they went to my mother and had a meeting about how she should watch me. And now I'm not sexually active. How she should watch me and how I should be put on birth control.
Wow. So
Right.
so you gonna set a boundary for me because you can't set one for yourself. Like that's
And your
first that's
husband's
gross.
old pervert self
Right.
that's
That's
looking
what I'm
out.
like. First, that's gross.
So
But
you know what happened? I internalized that.
of course we
It's
do.
the reason I still
Must be something
barely
wrong with
wear
me.
skirts and short shorts to this day.
I won't wear
And
shorts at all. I
at
won't wear
that
shorts at
time,
all.
right, and at that time, and until I had kids, I had a body type that people go and pay for, like boobs, small waist, flat stomach, hips, butt, in tone, So,
And we're told that like all of a sudden we're over sexualized. And why?
right.
Because my body developed the way that it was supposed to.
I ran track and they gave us a track jumpsuit and we could wear it on track meet days. I used that excuse and wore that warm-up suit 2 times a week, just not to wear clothes that I thought people were
Absolutely.
going
To
to pay
cover it
me
up.
attention.
To cover it up.
So we get taught really early, especially as Black women, that the boundaries that we're supposed to set for ourselves come from outside of us.
Yes. Other people
Um,
set boundaries for us.
and mostly by women. I've been learning as I've got older, most of the negative things that's been implanted in my mind are from women who were supposed to love me or care about me, or just even like those two neighbors, y'all, peer group, y'all done been through this. Why was that y'all thought? Unfortunately, I told you my mom, she a rah-rah, she set a boundary real quick
Right.
about them coming over to her house and talking about her daughter, but like who people are supposed to pour into you, teach you these negative things about how you set boundaries. So for me, my conversation with my daughter about how she sets boundaries around her sexuality is going to be different. First, okay, let's teach you the biblical stuff, because I have friends on the other spectrum too, where all their boundaries were biblical.
Don't get pregnant.
God said don't have premarital sex.
Right, right. I mean, we certainly don't teach abstinence anymore. Like all we were taught was don't get pregnant.
Right.
Because then everybody will know. Look, don't matter if the boy gets people pregnant, but if you get pregnant, we know.
Right.
Yeah, like.
But the boundary being set only in Christian values, because this is the conversation I have with my husband, is okay, is a sin, you're gonna go to hell, but we all start teaching at the same time the blood of Jesus gonna heal that, or just wait until you get married and all that kind of stuff, without teaching our children about sexual health, really sexuality, the emotional part of sex, all those things are all encompassing, so they can have all the information to set the proper boundaries. Because let's say I wait till I get married and I had this husband that I'm having sex with, that's having sex with 10 other people.
Well, and let's be honest. Like,
So
while we having the conversation, breaking it down, being real, because I grew up in the church, same as you. The reality is, and whether it is because there are a lot of undertones or assumptions about what we are teaching about sexuality, it's the message is not is not the same for Christian men or women or young boys
It's
and young
not.
girls. Girls are the ones taught, like if you get caught having sex, you get called out your name, you all types of loose and everything else. It's not the same education for boys. So I mean, I intend on having a conversation with my daughter about how you respect yourself and how you know, create boundaries and whatnot. But the one thing that I was never, like, no one ever said it, you having a sexual desire or a sexual nature as a person is, it's normal, right?
Normal.
Like it's
Right.
we were not taught that that was normal. You were taught that if you know, you hot, you fast, and it's like,
Fast.
and
Right.
it's like, so not only did we get boundaries created for us in negative space around our sexuality, but like, come on, like, since when is getting hips and boobs like a crime, right? Like,
Right.
you know, this stuff is gonna happen, but the same way we know that our girls are gonna interact in a world with boys who are not gonna be taught, we have the same responsibility to teach them about their sexuality. It is not a badge of honor for our little men, our boys and men, to run around sleeping with any and everything, and then you married a good girl and you still got, you know, 10 chicks on the side. Like, why?
Right.
Like, why do
Why
they
is
get
that?
taught pimp culture, but we get taught, right?
Because okay, me and my husband were having this conversation just about in our marriage. We are taught that sexuality of the world is controlled by women. And in some part, that's true, but
Okay.
we take on way more the negative or the burden of that than the good. So for instance, we are the gateway to whether or not we're a hoe. Not to, but 40 people can know I'm sleeping with 39 people and still want to sleep with me. But for some reason they have no,
It's no title or
is no
negative
input of
connotation
that.
for them. Right.
We are the boundary to whether or not we get pregnant. Not this, you know, I can't get pregnant without
Right.
him, but
Right.
for some reason it's
It's
only
all
me who
you.
was supposed to make sure that didn't happen.
It's all you.
And so I had a friend in undergrad and we were all sitting around having a conversation about who would where on campus and all that. Cause like I had one person I dealt with on campus. There was about 5,000 Black people at Ohio State. There was like a chlamydia outbreak or something like my freshman year.
Oh,
And it
God.
was like 30% of the population
Sissy,
had it
you
on
got it. That's
campus.
because you
So I'm
messed
like,
with.
well, it's only 5,000 Black. So that means how many? I said, oh no. But so he was kind of getting teased about like being in the same boat. And he said that he was taught, his mom said, if you would not befriend somebody, if they don't have the qualities where you would want to be best friends with them,
Mhm.
why would you be sleeping with them?
Mhm.
And if this person doesn't have the qualities that they would be the mother of your child because you're sleeping with them, so they potentially they could be,
Right.
why would you be sleeping with them? And he said your boundary. He set a boundary or a standard for himself because he said he can hear his mom's voice every time he's
Yeah.
interacting with a woman. So he said when she starts to do those little and you know evil things or things you should pay attention to or those little quirks and personality, he said his sexuality is so ingrained in that boundary he set for herself. He's like she could look good as a mother, but I just can't do it.
It makes
So
perfect sense. It
taking
makes perfect sense.
all this little stuff that I've endured and just hearing from people, those are the conversations I want to have with my sons. So the reason why men run around and boys run around and do whatever, because nobody ever instilled in them that they should have a boundary to their own body.
Right. It's not
Like,
it's not really a badge of honor for you to tell me, oh, I've been with hundreds of women. And
right.
I'm sitting here like, so why do I
You.
want to be 101 for you? Like, what? That's not.
Right. There's
I
nothing
want to
special
know,
about
like,
you.
what does that say about you? Like, but that's also a red flag for me. It says to me, you think very little of yourself.
Of yourself.
You give yourself away to a lot of people for no reason. And you think there's no consequence because there was no baby or no STD or right, she
Right.
let you do it a couple more times or whatever. But it actually says you don't like you enough. You don't care about you enough. And then like in a Christian dating space, like this is another, because it's supposed to be assumed that if you're Christians and you're dating that you're not having sex, right? oh my gosh,
My God.
how many people, like how many dating opportunities have I missed? How many opportunities have I missed to, to have a relationship? Because I'm like, well, wait, if we're supposed to be doing it like the Bible says, we ain't supposed to be getting down, bro.
Right.
And then, oh, well, I mean, if you ain't putting out, I can't have no relationship. And I'm like, I don't think that's how it works. But then, like, it's amazing too, because to even have a conversation, as a grown woman with a grown man, and you have walls up around your vulnerability because you haven't had boundaries in place. So you're going to attempt to set boundaries together, and try to navigate a relationship, whether, and again, I say with a man, but this is the same thing with your girlfriends or any other relationship. It's important to have a conversation about setting boundaries too, because other people now come to the table with experiences that they've had with, a woman or a man in a negative space, and they come with the assumption now, well, all women are like that, or all men are like this, or I had a girlfriend for 17 years and she let me do this, that, or the other, or
what's your problem?
Right. Like my oh my gosh, what I keep saying is, well, if she's accepted that and put up with it for 17 years, you should have kept
You need
her.
to go back. I always tell people that. So I've had some exes, and when we broke up and they wanted to, like me be this girlfriend or potentially be this wife, why they got to do whatever, but it was girlfriend wife time. And I would tell them all the time, there are people who are agreeable to being in that situation. There are people who believe all men cheat. So if they get a good, nice looking guy like you and you marry them, you could do whatever. But that's here for me. So we're gonna keep doing this. So one, I was expressing to them a boundary I wasn't enforcing. I just realized that. But when I finally decided to enforce it, the flip out you get from a person that cheated on you forever,
right?
You finally ejected the boundary you've been telling them, and they lose it.
Because it's okay. So now we gonna be in relationship space, right? So
right.
You are in your relationship and you have never actually sat down and the words came out of your mouth. Hey, we're exclusive, no cheating. I'm not gonna cheat, right? You haven't had that conversation because you assume I'm not a cheater, right? Like, so I'm not going into this relationship to have 15 men on the side and this one man. And so it's not my natural assumption that he's got me and, I'm the bottom, but he got 10 others, right? That's not the assumption. So the minute, okay, now he's flirted or sent an inappropriate text message on my favorite, because everybody's DMs on social media.
Right.
And this, oh my gosh, I met this one guy and he was a preacher, let him tell it, but he was texting me and it was some inappropriate stuff and it had a scripture at the bottom and I was mortified. I was mortified, okay? But so we haven't had a discussion about boundaries because you think I physically need to tell you that I'm not entering in a relationship with you to allow you to go then have relations with 52 other people. That's a conversation we needed to have as adults. But you know what? If you don't have these conversations with people, assumptions will not get you anywhere anymore at all.
Well, what's the weirdest part about both of these relationships? We didn't start off as exclusive. That the persons asked me for exclusivity, and particularly the second one, I kind of started figuring out, because I date corny, I call it corny dudes. They into different stuff, read a lot of books.
Opposites attract. The nerds. I love nerds.
I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd.
I know.
I love them. Sci-fi, all that kind of stuff. I was just looking up to go to what is it? The Black version of like Comic-Con.
I knew you were gonna say that. Comic-Con. I knew you were gonna say that.
So I'm looking at that and I'm like, I could go.
I could do that. The costumes.
I always want to go and be Storm.
The costumes that they have for some of the Comic-Con characters. Yeah,
or Monica Rambeau, the first Black Captain Marvel. Anyway, off my nerves. So back to this. So I forgot what I was talking about. See, I didn't dating the nurse. So I started to kind of figure out the second one, like he might not be as corny as I'm thinking he is. And we had the conversation before we were in a relationship where I explained and set the boundary like, listen, I don't think you're particularly ready to be in a relationship.
Right.
I'm cool with that. We can hang out and be friends and do whatever. However, you keep asking me for this relationship. And when I agree, it's going to be my expectation that we are exclusive, this person persisted several months, probably like dang near half a year. And so I agreed, and it was all quiet in the beginning because I think he was like, got her,
Right, finally.
But then after that, it was just like habitual line crossing. And it was like, I let that go on and on and on. And both those relationships, for all the craziness that happened, it was something small, even in that friendship that I talked about, something smaller in the universe of things I have allowed you to do to me.
Yeah.
That finally broke the camel's back. So the first one, I was in law school, and I had moved out of an apartment to this house, and they had just bought a house. And they're telling me what not to put to where I'm living because we're going to get married. I'm going to move with them. So I didn't have a washer and dryer. I went out. I didn't have a washer and dryer. So it's like exam week coming, and you already know how stressful that is. I pack up all my clothes and I call and say, hey, I'm going to come over, wash my clothes. I got to get ready for exam week. And this person tells me, no, I'm going to the bar and I'm going to be tired when I get home. So you can't come over and watch it. So I hung up the phone and I packed up, took the bags I had packed up, and I drove to the laundromat. I get home and I'm folding clothes, and Keisha Cole is the first time I ever heard it. I think it's called I Remember. I remember when my heart broke. So it's playing on the TV and tears are just streaming down my face. And then I started thinking, this person didn't even care about you enough to say, when you said I need clean clothes because I'm preparing for exam week in law school.
How about I just need clean clothes to begin with, and you the fool that told me not to get a washer and dryer because we got a future together. How about that?
To the point where he didn't care you preparing to take like the biggest exam, because it might have been my first year. So it was either first or second semester my first year. And I had to realize, like, because we explain away cheating, we explain away. I'm like,
it's always a reason for their behavior,
right? And so I had to put that wall up, and then, like you said, a year or two later, here this person come. Oh, I just want to be cool with you. And another friend I had said, don't fall for that, blah blah blah. Because I'm seeing him at the gym, we hanging out, we go to dinner a couple times, we being cool. So he shows up at my house, and he's like, I got to show you something. So I'm thinking it's like some workout stuff. So I'm like, oh, come over. So he come in and he gets to going on this love spiel. And I'm like, what's going on? He go down on his knee and pull a ring out his pocket.
Oh, hard pass. No, thank you.
It's been a year and a half, almost 2 years of breaking up. And when we're hanging out, we're not hanging out romantically. There's none of that going on. And I'm like, why would you do that? And he's like, I just thought since we have been hanging out and being cool, we can get engaged now, date for a year, and then we could set a wedding date after that. And then I thought about it. I had opened up that path for him to start crossing those boundaries again.
Mm-hmm.
So in his mind, she done started talking to me. She done started hanging out with me. We cool, we having fun, we have fun conversations. So why not?
Right.
Jump back over this line. Because obviously she's cool with this. So that's another thing I'm learning when you said when it's time to.
Yep. Sometimes you just got to cut the cord and there's no going back. Or like I have, it's weird too, because this is going to sound really horrible, but it's the truth. So I have dated people in the past, and then, you get to a place in your relationship where it's kind of like time for your people to set eyes on them, your parents, your family, your friends. And then in my mind,
but your mom sniff them. That's what.
But look, I'm already like, I mean, it was cool, me and you, right? Because I can explain some things to myself, but then you a hard sell for
Right.
I don't know how to. And then why in my mind didn't it go? That's because you ain't got no business with this person,
Right.
right? You know darn
Exactly.
well ain't nobody
Well,
gonna stamp this dude for you, and you over here like 3, 4, 5 months in, when can I meet your family? Or when,
you
ooh,
like,
that's like, or
they
my
moving,
daughters never
they out
met
of
him or
town.
anything, right? You're like, so you really have to say to yourself, knock it off, right? Like knock it off. Like that's that's a red flag, for me when I'm like, I don't even want to share you with anybody because I
Right.
already know what they're gonna say.
Right.
So and I think like we kind of have to grow past. That's the other thing. A lot of difficulty with setting boundaries for Black women too. We're ashamed. Like
Shame.
when I think about a lot of the guys I dated, and I will be honest and say that growing up in the church, you're taught to date with purpose. So you sort of think dates are leading you somewhere, whether it's a long-term relationship, whether it's marriage or whatever, you are of the mindset that this person has that potential.
Right.
And like, and then when you start to realize, no, not not so much potential is, what the heck was I looking at or wasn't I looking at, right?
Right.
And now, and I know I have friends like this who are unfortunately married. I have friends like this who are single, but you invested a lot of years with someone that you don't like yourself, and you're ashamed now because you're in a situation where you can't be your best self, and you really like, even if you went to get out of it, it's the shame that's keeping you there.
Right.
And so that's again another way that other people, or we're letting other people's opinions of us set boundaries for us that we have not learned to set for ourselves. So
Exactly.
I have like a little checklist now that I kind of go through, right? And for sure, and like you, dude, you've been around me for decades. So especially now in this space when I have a daughter, like how conscious I am
Exactly.
about not like intermingling her with people that I'm not gonna be with long term, because I think that's whack. But you and I had a conversation about like, after you start dating somebody for a minute and it seems to be okay, y'all on the same page, if they have kids or you have kids, you definitely want to see how your kids get along with that person. Because if like it come out my daughter's mouth, oh, I don't like him, like this,
Right.
like
You're like, why? Let me
right,
know.
then it's kind of no purpose of this going any
Yeah,
further. And
exactly.
and I remember, so I was dating a guy, and my daughter kind of said something to that effect, and I brought it up to him, and he was just kind of like, oh, well, she's a kid, what does she know? And I was like, oh,
Oh,
like that was not the right answer,
right.
sweetheart. Like, so it becomes easier with kids to set boundaries too, because there's just a lot of stuff that I'm not going to put up with. But I'm amazed at what I've allowed before I became a mom. So this is another way to help us teach our young people how to create boundaries for themselves. And then a lot of healing. That's the one thing you and I haven't talked about. We've allowed people to cross boundaries that hurt your feelings, that hurt your self-esteem, that it bothers you to your core. And if you don't make an effort to heal from past hurt, whether it is something you walk into unknowingly, like my mom always says, I go into situations like this. Hi, I'm Stephanie. Love me. I'm here to love you. And she was like, so now you have to go into it like this.
Yes.
You have to guard your heart. Everybody is not worthy of who you are to be in your space, to
Exactly.
have some of your energy, to engage with you and yours. And that's like you said, because everybody doesn't have good intentions for you. And quite frankly, even if a person comes into your space and they did have good intentions for you, if you show them that all you have is this, then
Right.
all they ever gonna do is
Oh,
take it.
exactly.
And who knows if they ever gonna give anything back, but that's a boundary that you didn't set for them, so now you've allowed it to be, oh, Candy's always that person that's gonna give 100%, because that's who she is. No, she don't want you to pay her. No, she don't want you to show up for her. No,
Right.
she don't want you, right? Like, and then before you know it, you be sitting in a room like, how did I surround myself with a whole bunch of people who want all of me, but when I need something, they can't be present.
Exactly. So when you're talking about like healing, I think that where you have to go with that is, okay, here's the things that have happened to me, and here is what I learned from it. And so here are the things that I want out of my relationships with people, and here are the things I won't tolerate. Once you start saying, okay, here they are, and I'm worthy of those things,
Yes.
your boundaries will go up and
Yes.
align real quick where they're supposed to be. Because I've been finding out in my healing from friendships or relationships or family stuff, at that time where you were allowing that stuff, even if it's I'm trying to be a good friend, or it's a Christian sacrifice, there is also part of whatever was going on with you where you didn't feel worthy enough or valued enough to protect yourself.
Right, right.
Because now when you think about some of the things you allow somebody to do to you that you have healed from, you'll be like, Jesus Christ, I had to tell this to it. Jesus Christ will have to appear here on this earth and tell me to do that again.
Right, right. Or to tell me after I've forgiven you and I'm gonna pretend that you've extended forgiveness to me for what I might have done. But
Right.
after forgiveness has been laid out, Jesus Christ will have to appear and tell me that you need to try that again, to see if right. Because otherwise, I'm
No,
good.
I'm
And
good.
I say this all the time, love you from a distance, because I'm always gonna, pray for people. I believe people came into your space for a reason. Like, I was married, I'm divorced. It took me a long healing process to be in a place where I can pray for that man. Because that's my child, that's my child's
Child's
father, right?
father, right.
That's my child's father. So does that mean we ever gonna have a relationship again? No, right? But can I, hey, you do you, and I have to pray over you because you are, her father and in her space, and she will interact with you. I want that to be healthy. I want that to be encouraging or whatnot, right? But you know, like you said, acknowledging where I was in that space, allowing when I look back on that, allowing someone to mistreat me and then being so afraid and so ashamed, to speak up and say, well, I'm smart, right? Or I'm a lawyer. Like, how did this get pulled over on me? How come I couldn't see this? There was all of this. And then when it finally came to me, it's like, dude, this is a life or death kind of situation for you. If you stay in this, you kind of know, right? You
Right.
are you're acknowledging that you're not worth more, and you are. Like we know we worth more. We tolerate so much. We make excuses for negative behavior, whether it's from our girlfriends, whether it's from our men friends. Like, there's always an excuse instead of the truth. And sometimes the truth is, and I said this the other day, like, there are a lot of things people always saying it's the devil. No, sometimes it's just the consequences of your actions, right? And you just don't want to be responsible for that or acknowledge it. Because if I acknowledge that I had a role in something that hurt me, then I'm stupid or I'm dumb. Or people are gonna,
I have to look at why I'm accountable, and I don't.
In order to be able to heal, to extend forgiveness, even when no one's asking you to forgive them, you have to do all of that, because then you got to do your work to forgive yourself for allowing certain things. And then, like you said, and then the boundaries do come up. And the minute you start setting boundaries with folks who used to running all over them, whether that be family, friends, colleagues, man, those folks get so mad. But I swear it's like them getting mad is letting me know I'm doing right. Oh, you were one of the people running over my feelings, right? Or just my self-esteem, my self-respect. Like, you were one of those people that totally got used to Stephanie giving everything and you not having to give anything. So it is, I mean, in this day and age, it's a lot of damaged people running into other damaged people. If you haven't made the effort to say, yeah, man, I was hurt then, or I hurt somebody, because we've been in a position to hurt people too, and dole out negative stuff. So yeah, I was not a nice person then, or yes, I allowed some things I shouldn't have. If you can't get to a place where you can say I'm beyond that and I'm better, like, you're gonna keep running into the same people. You're gonna keep, inviting people into your space that's negative and just want to drain your energy. You're gonna keep running into people who will never respect your boundaries because you haven't really figured out or done your work, right? To figure out, like, I say I'm worth it. Now, how do I show it? We talk big, right? Black girl magic all the time. We talk big, but if you ain't walking in it too, It's plenty of people that's heard that talk before. Oh yeah, I'm gonna save myself for marriage. You know, this next go round, this next relationship is gonna be the last one for me. And then you end up doing the exact same thing you
I
did
think
the
you did
last
before.
time. And then you think that dude didn't know that? Like, you think yes, sis, you a Christian. Everybody say that, right? Like,
Right.
you think he didn't know, like, and then you sit there, 6 months later, like, man, how did I do it again? Come on. Like
You know how you did it again.
that's it. And that's part of if you're gonna set boundaries, you're gonna walk the walk, you gotta talk the talk.
I
Okay,
think
go ahead.
I think the red, like you said, the red flags that you learn from a past relationship about other people's actions, but red flags in your own
In your
actions too,
own, right.
where you know, oh, I'm starting to be an enabler, or I'm allowing this person to talk to me a certain way because I'm feeling kind of sweet on the side over here. So acknowledging your own behavior,
Yeah,
like you said, is a big part of setting
yeah.
boundaries.
And
When
if
you
you
have a
keep,
tendency to do
yes,
something that allows people to cross your boundaries, you need to recognize when you're doing that thing.
and if you walk into each new situation, relationship, job, whatever, if you walk into each new situation with the exact same tools that you had in place last year, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 15 years ago, prepare to be run over, because that means you
Exactly.
haven't learned. Like, it's new tools for a new day. Like, and if you haven't picked up like a Bible, or if you have not gotten with a friend, a real friend, right? That can
Right.
encourage you. Stephanie, you know that was dumb. Or sis, come
Mm-hmm.
on, we can do better than that. If you don't have those people that are going to, poke you in the eye every once in a while, because you're not always right. I'm not always right. If you don't have
Exactly.
those people that tell you, you can do better than that. Or Stephanie, didn't we do that already? You know what? And
Mm-hmm.
speaking of, this lady said, I thought of it because it hurt me to my core when she said it, and I didn't want to pay no attention to it. But I was dating this guy, and I promise you I was in love. It was love. I'm telling you it was love. And this lady pulled me to the side, and she was like, "Oh, he reminds me of your ex-husband."
Oh,
And I
bro.
was like, because you have to acknowledge sometimes people outside see your situation without the
Situation.
rose-colored glasses. And when
Uh-huh.
she said that, bro, my stomach was upset. And like, and the sad part about it is when I started to like back up and look at it,
Mm-hmm. He did.
manipulative,
Right.
controlling. That man said, "Let me have your phone so I can put something on there so I can see when you read my text messages." And I
Wow.
remember I said no. I thought he was joking, right? And
Mm-hmm.
every time when I think that he wasn't joking, if I had said
Joking.
yes, he would have done that,
He
right?
did it.
Like,
Right.
if you don't step out of some controlling mess, don't get me started on the control. But when she said that, I promise you, and I like when I look back on that, I'm like, because it was the exact same spirit. It was the exact same. And I'm like, well, why didn't I see it?
Right.
But then let's be real too. So there are some times when we are stuck on ourselves or what we want. Like I said, I was
Mm-hmm.
in love. I can see the love,
Right.
but just hearts and so
Right.
then, like, you can see the love and you want the love, and then somebody comes and tells you they see something different. If you don't see that that's God, sometimes it is not always sis hating, or he just don't want me to be happy. It's not always that
Always
either.
that.
Like,
I always tell people the one argument, that relationship that I was talking about, me and my sister have never had a fist fight, a argument, or whatever. And one day she called me at work and she said she cannot hold this in anymore.
can't take it no
And
more.
she read me the riot act about this relationship. And then she was pointing to things that I didn't know that I was doing.
Yep.
Like, she was like, you missed little William's birthday. And he brought it up, as my nephew. And she was like, you've never missed his birthday in his
Yep.
life. That nephew was very non-emotional. And it was like when she started that little list, well, the reasons why it was problematic, and one of the things that I remember her saying, she's like, yeah, everybody is encouraging another relationship over there because it's beneficial for him.
Right.
But I'm going to tell you, you need to cut him because he's not worthy of you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it was like, that's a person who genuinely cares and gets it and
That's your
got it.
sister.
It was
Yeah.
like, I'm about to have the first fight with my sister in our lives. But she got to hear this.
And it's one of those,
Mhm.
I see in you some things that you can't see for yourself. right?
Mhm.
Or it's what we see in the mirror is not really what other people see of us. I am struck by that all the time. How people,
Right.
what people see me as, or what they think, you're this, you're that. And I'm like, dude, I'm a single mother with student loans, right? Like I break it down to the studs. And then I'll be sitting there like, well, wait a minute. I am a warrior. I am a survivor. I am worthy. I deserve somebody who can love me with their whole heart, right?
Mhm.
I know I'm worthy of that. So why accept anything less from my girlfriends, from my boyfriends, from my family, right? And then you realize when you start setting these boundaries that the people who don't need to be in your space will fall away.
All the way. Yeah.
They will fall away because you are becoming who you are supposed to be. And
Um,
everybody ain't entitled to be in that audience.
everybody ain't along for the ride, as they say.
All right, Second Peter chapter 1, verse 5. For this very reason, make every effort to add to your faith goodness, and to goodness knowledge, and to knowledge self-control, and to self-control perseverance, and to perseverance godliness, and to godliness mutual affection, and to mutual affection love. For if you possess these qualities in increasing measure, they will keep you from being ineffective and unproductive in your knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. I picked that,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to let you pray us out. But I picked that scripture because if those aren't boundaries, self-control, perseverance, right? Like these are the boundaries to have in place, because the people who are entitled to be in your space will not run over those boundaries, and you will be able to hold yourself accountable, and then hold the people in your circle accountable to the same boundaries. And that's not to say, I always say this, we're not perfect. We make mistakes. I swear God has a sense of humor, because like sometimes some of the shenanigans that happen in life, you can't help but laugh at. And it was like, oh my gosh, coming over to my job interview, I had a run in my pantyhose. I broke my heel on my shoe. I was an hour late. I mean, like, and I still got the job. Right. Like,
Right.
so, but some of the stuff is just, I'm just okay, because this is the stuff that's sent to spin you out and make you, oh, I'm not gonna get this job. Look at everything going wrong, everything. And came in and rocked it with a busted heel and jacked up pantyhose and the whole 9 hour late. Like, so some of the stuff that's put out is not to make us fail. It's just to make you say, I got this anyway. And if
Right.
that's God power, or, calling on people to pray for you and be present with you where you are so that they can push you forward to be better, we are in need of people like that in our circle, more so than just those Heckle and Jekyll people who are with you for the club and for the minute, and then the minute you get married and I'm still single, I ain't your friend no more. Or your son go to this school and I was trying to get my son in that school and still I didn't get in, we can't be cool. Like, it's so many shenanigans, because that's the best way to say it. But we have to let that stuff fall away, because our relationships are not meant to be permanent, and some are. Those are the blessings, but not all are. So if we can acknowledge who we are in this season, acknowledge what we're worth, right, in this very moment, not who you wish you were, not who you want to be next week, and not the billionaire on the yacht. Like, that's fine to have hopes and wishes and dreams, but who you are right now, if you can stand in this space and acknowledge your worth right now, the good things that will come to you, it will be such a blessing that you will not have to concern yourself with who's in your space trying to take from you, because you will have your boundaries in place. All right, give us a prayer and then we can be done.
Right. First, Lord, we come to you and thanks. We thank you for the blessing that was this conversation today. We ask that it blesses someone, let someone know that they are worthy of their boundaries. You made them, and all of your good, you instilled in them greatness, and they are perfect in your sight. So they are worthy of the love that you have for people to give them in the right way. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen, amen. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you. It was fun.